Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be talking to the wonderful Brian Tyree Henry, who is the actor and executive producer of Dope Thief. And one of the first things I was really interested in terms of playing Raymond is I've heard you talk a lot about the idea of him feeling like an inconvenient child.
Mm.
And there's so much with this character that stems back to his childhood and particularly his teenage years. And I was interested in how that really helped you in terms of being such a formative way of building this character.
Yeah, when approaching this, I had to make a decision about how much I wanted to reveal about my own upbringing, which is a big reason why I agreed to sign on. On top of the fact that I just love Peter Craig's writing, and when am I ever going to say I got to work with Ridley Scott? You know what I mean? So, but there was something that was incredibly cathartic and for the lack of a better word, therapeutic about playing Ray just because I hadn't seen a character that was so close to like the absolute sinew of all the things that I felt like I was going through in my own personal life. And I'd never seen a character, especially a character of color, like going through the trials and tribulations and just the haphazard things that Ray found himself in. And to be honest with you, that felt fun to explore. It was like this is fun to explore, especially since I had done the work on myself, because I too would walk through life feeling like an inconvenient child for a big part of my life. I'm the baby of five. Everyone was an adult when I came in. The household that I lived in was quite tumultuous, and just trying to have these two black parents make ends meet with these kids and this time, like it was hard. And so there was a lot of connection that I found in Ray. A big part of me also just wanted to like pull him close, like I find that the characters that I absolutely have the most exploration with are the ones that I really care about, like that I want to like really find out if they're okay after they don't ever really leave me once it's a wrap. I end up really caring about these men and wanted to make sure they make it to the other side. And with Ray, it was nonstop. Like as you well know, watching the show, I mean, every single episode, your adrenaline is just like, what are you doing? Like, what do you like? Why, like Ray? Why are you doing? And I mean, I found myself doing it in between takes. I was just like, this, like, Ray, give me a break, bro. Like but it came with a huge amount of care. You know what I mean? I knew I had not seen a character like this on television in quite a long time, and to be able to step in the seat of being the lead of the show and the EP really gave me agency in a wonderful way to really talk about how I wanted to showcase him and his emotions and him dealing with his grief and especially him dealing with his addiction. Because that's something that I had rarely seen on television, watching this character of color fight this demon of addiction while also, trying to figure out where he fits. And so that was exciting to me. And it was really cool to know that Apple gave me the opportunity to do it all. They literally were like, here you go. Like, we trust, go, do, play. And I couldn't have done it with a better team. I mean, Peter Craig is one of the most masterful writers of this generation. I love that man, and he was in the trenches with me every single day. And the ensemble was just, I mean, I just chef's like and I love them all. We became very close and dealing with a lot of trauma on this show, like every single day there was something around the corner that just shocked our systems, but we held each other down in a wonderful way. And so I owe them a huge amount of gratitude because Dope Thief was truly, truly cathartic for me.
It's amazing. And it also feels like so many of these things with Ray as well, these aspects of his life play into he's someone who really wants to try and control situations around him and feel like there's some sense of order.
Yeah,
Um, and he's in the most uncontrollable situations of his life every episode at the same time. Did
right.
you feel like that was really something that he's trying to create a stability and a sense of order that he just never had growing up with his family life?
Absolutely. I think there's so many parallels between Ray and I feel like he was just a guy trying to find home, like trying to really figure out what home was. And it seemed like every corner he turned, his home was being, deconstructed, reconstructed, shifted, taken away, from the inception of him being like a baby in this world. There was always something And here you have this fully formed man. According to society, he is a man. But I'll often feel like, when it comes to this system, especially, the judicial system, the incarceration system, and so on and so forth, it does this really crazy job of keeping these men and women at the age with which they were incarcerated. So, the earlier you get them, the more you're able to control them, right? And so here you have Ray and his best friend Manny, these two men of color who are incarcerated from the ages of 14, 15 years old. And so everything that they know about formulating how to be a man in society is by being in prison and being caged up. So like they're still going through those formative years, right? Of trying to like become men and understand what that means. Like, they like, but they're stripped of all, the rites of passage of being, teenagers and young men. There is no prom, there is no graduation, there is no learning how to drive. All those things are stripped from them because the society told them you don't deserve this. We want you here. We're caging you this way, and and they still have to develop. And so what I really love about this show is that you're meeting these two men at a place in their lives where they have survived the system. They've survived it, but what does survival on the outside look like? Because they're still moving as if though they're adolescent. Their minds are still not as developed as, functioning adults in society because society has told them that they're not. Society has told them that this is as far as you go, which is a common story that we have in this country. And so me and Wagner, like, shout out to Wagner Mora. Like, I can't even tell you how that brotherhood has absolutely changed my life. I've been a fan of this man for a long time, but to really get to play with Wagner is like, it changes your life. It really changes your life. And so, we knew approaching Ray and Manny that it had to come with the sense of that new love in a teen, like when you're 15 and your nose is open and you're finding these new ideals and you're fluttering a little bit because it was like Ray and Manny is a love story at the end of the day. As tragic as it is, it's still a love story because they're all each other had. And so we pick up in this series where we're watching them, have this whole, scheme that they've figured out on how to make it because society has told them that they don't deserve. And then you're just watching them try to figure out how to make it day to day. But also, you're also watching a relationship that you're just like, are they going to stay together? Like, is this healthy? Or is it good that they're? And I love that. I really love that, especially when you have the opportunity to play with someone like Wagner. It's just like the most amazing smorgasbord you could ever ask for because, Brian and Wagner truly love each other. And we were like, well, there's no way that Ray and Manny don't have that same kind of sinew. So, but we really wanted to make sure that for those watching that they understood these men because we didn't want that label that could be easily placed on them, making them juvenile delinquents, making them delinquents, period. Like, how do you make a story where technically the antagonist or your protagonist and you follow along? And to me, sometimes that's the most fun. Like, I love projects that do that because like you can't judge them. You can't. I mean, you can, because like I was like, Ray, don't go in. Like, just God damn it. But that's where the fun comes from, I think.
I also heard that in working with Wagner Moura, he was cast fairly close to when production started, and that one of the early conversations the two of you had was him saying, I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know if I fully know what I'm doing yet, and that you kind of reciprocated with, well, it's okay because neither do I. How did that conversation together really help in just like forming that immediate bond and trust to like try things, and even if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out together?
What an experiment acting is, right? Like, what an experiment of like doing this story where you two are supposed to have this absolute through line and thread that you have known each other and grown up together. And then literally my first day on set, like and I love that. I think that that's why I love doing what I do because, it reveals a lot about yourself and the relationships you want and relationships you've had and so it's so interesting because everything in me wanted to talk Wagner out of agreeing to do this project because I respect him so much. Like we were throwing him into the fire, man. Like we were, and I know that he is an actor who, like any actor, wants to prepare. Wants to make sure that he has it together. And he wasn't given the opportunity to have the material as long as some of us had it. And so I remember, this one I had to put my EP hat on. I was like, "You guys want me to call him?" I was like, I was like, I can't, like, this actor that I admire, this man that I admire, calling him to try to, I guess, persuade, like truly trying to like persuade this man to join me. And so initially, when I got on the phone call with him, I was trying to talk him out of it because I was like, this is a lot. I don't, it's not fair to an actor of your caliber, right? Like, I know it's a kamikaze mission. And so as we're talking, we must have been on the phone for about 20 some odd minutes, man. And it was already like the pistons were already going, man. Like you could immediately feel it because like Wagner leads with his spirit. Like you can feel the essence of this man. I could go on and on and on. I could write a book about, the essence of Wagner. And by the end of the phone call, he was like, "Well, that's it. After talking to you, I'm definitely going to do it." And I was like, "Shit." It's like, I thought that I had caught on because I was like, that's a lot to ask of an actor of that caliber to like, come on, and like that short of time, and but he said that after the conversation, he knew for a fact that he wanted to be a part of it. And so from Friday to Monday, I mean, literally him getting on a flight, him doing fittings, him doing hair consultations, him doing, him trying to memorize Monday, first day on set, early in the morning. And the scene is literally the first scene that you see in the show where we're in the back of this van and we're about to go rob this house. And so, they call us on set and Wagner literally pulls me into this room, closes the door behind him. And I'm like, what's about to happen? And he just grabs me by my shoulder and he puts his forehead next to me. Like we literally go forehead to forehead. And he was like, I just want to say, my name is Wagner Mora. I'm a father of three. I'm Brazilian. English is not my first language. I'm really scared. Da 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 da. And then I just grabbed his face and I was like, well, my name is Brian. I'll be playing Ray. I'm your Ray for the rest of this. No matter what, just look at me. Let me know what you need. I'm just as scared, but I will never leave your side. Like I promise I will never leave your side. And in that moment, we were just like, oh, here's Ray and Manny. Like here, I was like, this is them. This is them since they were 15 years old, like truly. And we never left each other's side the entire time, man. Like it's one of those gifts if you're so fortunate as an actor to find a scene partner like that. Because like, I would look at Wagner on set. I was like, man, I can't wait to watch us get old. We're gonna get old together. Like I'm gonna have to put your teeth in for you at some point. Like that's how long this friendship is gonna go. And it just elevated everything. It elevated everything in the series because that's the kind of connection Ray and Manny should have. Like you watch these boys who were thrown into a system that said you're men now, and like that's it. No family to visit, nobody, and this is a story that is so common. It's a story that's so common, especially in this country. It's so common. And I think we just knew that instead of trying to find the machismo and the roughness and the hard edges of what happens, what does it look like when there's still these young juveniles, and what does it look like when they're still searching for love, like like the tenderness and the protection, and the agency to feel vulnerable. That was where we came. Because here's the thing about Dope Thief is that at the end of the day, Ray and Manny are fucking terrible at this. Like they are not professionals. They're really not. They're just trying to make ends meet, as many people were trying to do at that time, because we also set this like the year after the pandemic, right? So like the whole world is shifting, and I can only imagine how the world shifted for low income and people who had been incarcerated, and people like everyone had to find a way to survive, and these two still chose to survive together. And that was what was really important for me in creating this show, because we don't ever get to see this kind of tenderness, you know what I mean? We don't ever get to see this kind of folly with two men, especially men of color. It's always we got to be hard and we got to shoot guns and we always got a plan and we're Tony Soprano, you know what I mean? And I was like, no, not these two. These two are trash at this. Like, they are absolute trash. But in that comes the humor too, and that comes the levity, and that comes a connection for the audience to root for these anti-heroes that you really shouldn't be rooting for at the end of the day. And I always love television that makes you talk to it. Like I love interactive television. I love when you're just like in your seat and you throwing stuff and you're upset. And I feel like Dope Thief really gave us that, which is also testimony to Peter Craig's writing, because Peter Craig will piss you off with some of the choices that the characters make. I would approach Peter every week. I was like, so this grenade that we It's like what? I was like, but I'll play it. We got to play it. It was truly one of the best experiences I've ever had.
I know one of the decisions you challenged him on, and we'll talk about that one later.
Okay.
Um, but also there's so much for Ray in terms of his relationship with his father and how estranged they are. And it was
Yeah.
so interesting to see that scene where he goes in to visit him at the prison in one of the first episodes, and it's they're in a room full of other people, and he is just letting him have it. And it's here's everything that I'm feeling, here's everything I need to say to you. I'm not going to hold anything in. And then there's also that moment in one of the later episodes when he's been shot and he's just completely in and out of lucidity, but he's still there, just being like, I still have to kind of like talk this out and process it. But it
Yeah.
does feel like he doesn't completely heal from that journey, but he does get something from it in the end. And
Yeah.
so, what was that experience for you in really kind of like building those pivotal moments and how you felt like it changed him for the end?
A few things change you personally when they're telling you that Ving Rhames is about to be your dad. It still doesn't feel real. That I get to die at some point in this life and say that Ving Rhames and Kate Mulgrew played my mother and father. Like it just like I still am just like, what is happening? There was a lot of how do I put this? I had to bring personal things, as most actors do. You have to have a well to draw from, right? Like sometimes it helps elevate the performance and the space and the connection that you have. And I found in most of the projects that I was doing before, it was very mother energy. I lost my mother in 2016, and it seemed like the universe was like, let's give you mother stuff. I was like, please don't do that. Because I try not to therapize through acting, even though it is incredibly therapeutic, but it is not my therapy. I try to make sure that I don't want to come to a role and then all of a sudden I'm in a corner broken down because I didn't do the work. You know what I mean? Personally. So I try to not to use acting as therapy, but you can't help it. Sometimes it just is. And this was one of the first roles that allowed me to challenge myself to confront the father energy. Because my father is very much reflected in Ving and Ving's performance of what he did with Bart. And I was like, okay. It's like, okay, because I knew what the challenge of having these two black men, both incarcerated, both part of the system, but like what I really knew how I wanted that to not look. And I knew that in order for it to feel lived in and real, I just had to draw from personal experience and go with it. But that also meant that there was an exposure that was going to happen. And I think when you look at the relationship between Ray and Bart, it is a relationship that a lot of us, especially black men who have fathers in the system or who have fathers who grew up in a certain time in this country can relate to. We've been hardened and we've been abandoned and we're trying to figure out how to be men and not just how to be men, but how to be black men at the same time and like what that means. Um, and so a few things happened. During the hiatus of the series, when we went down for the strikes, my father passed before we even got to the pivotal episode, which is episode 6 of the confrontation of Bart and Ray and Bart showing up for it. And the universe is the universe is gonna do what the universe is gonna do, but I don't think the universe ever gives you more than you can handle, right? And so it wasn't lost on me that I lost my father around the same time I had to deal with Ray losing his father and all the things that Peter wrote and all that, because Peter and I also related on that connection too of how we were these two men who had the crunchiest relationships to our actual fathers who were still around. And I never seen it written like this. Like I never seen that kind of connection. And so um I just remember when we first started, that scene in the jail of visiting, my dad, it was so interesting because like here I am going back to a place that I inevitably ended up the life of recidivism. My father was here in jail. Now I'm in jail, but now I'm out. Now I'm visiting my father, and it's COVID times, and he's in a mask and looking just as weak. And there's a plate glass window, and the whole thing is that you watch me get patted down, and I still smuggled cigarettes in for this fool. Like I was like that. Like to me, I was like that already says levels of things that he still did something that could absolutely, if he got caught, like put him back in. I was like, so we're just gonna start the scene with that. Great. It's like great. Um, but when you're sitting across from Ving, who has this absolute stillness and stoicness and such a body of just unforgiveness, like he just like the things he's saying to me around that glass, even though he looks weak. I mean, it was just antagonistic. He's just antagonizing and doing. And I really believe in that scene. It's the first time that Ray ever really had the courage to say to him what he needed to say to him, because his father is just and I thought that was a beautiful moment because it reflected like a lot of what I was dealing with my father. And I really wanted all these fathers to kind of hear this, all these Black fathers, all these Black incarcerated fathers to see, that. And then you flip all the way to episode 6, where I can't really say anything. And then all he's trying to do is take care of me. All he's trying to, and he does it with the biggest sacrifice any father could give, which is his life. So there were a lot of things that I really was challenged with in this show, but I didn't want to run away from it. I didn't want to hide from it. I wanted to be just as like, open to it. And losing my father during the process of the show is not lost on me. It's not lost that it happened the way it did. Like he literally passed on Thanksgiving. So I was like, like you can't. But what I am grateful for is that I was able to come to a place of understanding. Maybe not fully understanding this man the way that I wanted to, but it made me feel like I could help Ray get to a place where he could understand his father, that he will always be a part of his father will always be a part of him, and that hopefully other men who watched it could feel a certain ease, because it's that stuff hardens you. And that was the one thing I didn't want for Ray in this entire series, is for him to keep being hardened and keep being, resentful and keep being upset, and having, I just really wanted to find peace for Ray. So when it came to episode 6, I was like, oh, great, he's been shot. He can lay down. It's the only episode that you actually see everyone in the series having to take care of him. Whereas the whole series, you're watching Ray doing everything he can to take care of everybody else. And filming that episode was truly it's terrifying. But I was like, oh man, I get to lay, like I spent most of this episode looking up at everybody. And I was like, oh man, like this is so nice. Like, look at everybody just like taking care of me. And I think that that's what Ray ultimately needed, because he thought he was an inconvenient child, most of his life. He thought he was a burden. And as someone who knows what that feels like, I don't know, it was the most cathartic thing. This whole show was incredibly cathartic. I owe Peter Craig so much for allowing me to stretch myself and show another side of myself to people, to play a character that people necessarily shouldn't root for, but you end up really caring about him in the end of the day. Like it was the best and hardest time, but it was the best time. This show, it was really, really, really a labor of love. And yeah, and shout out to Ving Rhames, man, because man, like he was phenomenal as Bart. He really, so much so that when my father did pass, I made sure to tell the entire crew and set to not tell Ving. I was like, don't let Ving know that my dad. I just don't want it to burden him. I don't want it to affect his relation to me, and so I hid it from him, just to protect us and protect our relationship. But it truly, I could breathe. Like I really could breathe. I never felt more protected than when that happened, and doing that and bringing that to the show. It was a great opportunity to be with them while I was going on.
Yeah, and I think all of those things are what make it feel so fully realized and so textured as a relationship on screen at the end of the day as well. And with Raymond's friendship with Manny, talking spoilers, and I know that at first you were challenging Peter Craig about, do you have to kill him off? Like, does he have to die? Because it obviously, that's you and Wagner as much as it's those characters by that point in filming. And I love that you weren't in that scene, but that you sat on set nearby as kind of
I
like, I'm there
I
for you.
I had to be there. I had to be.
Yeah.
Like it was so tough. Like it was so tough. To know that that was going to happen. Really, like to know that that was going to happen. And I sat there, like I came to set and I waited and I sat and I just wanted to be, and then I threw him a huge party. Like I threw him a huge party. I put like a Dr. Seuss hat on him. I got all Brazilian food. Like I played music. Like I just wanted to make sure that he knew how loved, like how truly loved he was. And like, instead of mourning him in his last day, I was like, we need to celebrate it, man, because like you as a person and you as an actor, but you as a person elevate everything you're part of. And I just cared about him so much. Like it was hard, man. Like it was hard. I like up to the day we shot it, I was like, Peter, are you sure? Like, are you like, is there a way? Like, maybe what it is that like he just passed out, and then we find out later that in the morgue he came back to like I tried to bargain, but that's a part of grief, right? Try to bargain.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just a testimony to Wagner's work and his connection, and it was tough, especially being an EP. I was like, I don't know. So I was just like, I'll just throw a party. At the end of the day, I'll just make sure we throw a party. But yeah, that's also just a testimony to Wagner and what he does. But it was hard. It's still hard to deal with, but I know it needed to happen that way. I know it needed to happen that way.
It's also really interesting to watch Raymond in that final episode after he loses his best friend, because it's both the thing that takes him to a rock bottom, but it's also the thing that feels like it makes him realize that he does want to live. When he's questioned, like, do you want a life?
Right.
You have to fight for this life that you want, if that's the case. And kind of seeing where he ends up in that final scene where it's just like, you're clean now, and it's talking about the food on his face, but just that quiet kind of like alleluia just felt like such a release moment for him. And
Yeah.
so how did you want losing his friend to also be the realization of what he actually wants for himself?
Well, the loss of Manny was a representation of a lot of things, right? Like that you can never go back, right? Like you can never go back. What did his life mean? There's this crazy point in a person's life when it comes to mourning and loss, because they talk about the five stages, right? And you've got denial, anger, bargaining, and so I think for Ray, it was imperative for me, honestly, when playing him, to get him to a place of surrender, because that truly is that's a part that they don't put in the stages of grief, is like there should actually be surrender, because surrender implies that it's so much bigger than you, and not to get into a holy kind of thing, but it's bigger than you. Something brings you to your knees where you absolutely have to surrender everything you thought, every plan you had. You come to a place, it's kind of like surrender is kind of in layman's terms a restart, right? An abandoning of all the ideals that you thought you knew, that and that's what I really wanted for Ray, because if you notice, like most of the series he's running away. He technically is a runaway, this whole thing of being an inconvenient child, right? Like he's always bouncing and moving and da 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 da. And what is the concept of home and safety? And and I just thought about me and what I needed and my life and my upbringing of seeing myself so much reflected in Ray. And I just remember the moments that I had to surrender is when it really felt lived in. My life felt lived in, because you're giving up something that you tried so hard to have control over, and it was never up to you to begin with. And so when we got to that scene with me and Marin, the wonderful, wonderful Marin Ireland, um, and we're sitting here in this truck, innocently just covered in soot, should be dead, shouldn't even be alive, eating breakfast sandwiches. Um, and he has some schmutz on his face, and here comes this person who I've been her Moby Dick the whole show. She's been trying to, and she just wipes, it off my face. Like there's something so tender about that. this person that you've been like running around, like you've been blaming me for losing your voice, you've been blaming me for this and blaming me for that, and there's this tender moment of her just like, boom, you're clean, you know. Words that I don't think that Raymond ever thought he would hear, like like this is why I love Peter. Just why I want to shake Peter all the time. It's so much about what's unsaid and what's underneath what's said, right? Because here we are completely filthy. We've lived filthy kind of lives, and to someone say to you, you're clean, he's like, huh, never thought of that. And then, Ray just responds with hallelujah, because it really is a surrender. I always feel like hallelujah is a call of surrendering in a way. And he really never thought he could be in a way. Like I don't think he ever thought he could be. And yeah, you have to kind of abandon a lot of the things and ideals that you thought made you who you were when you surrender in this life. I've been brought to surrender at least 4 times in my lifetime because I'm so lucky. Sometimes people don't get to a place where they can surrender in enough time. But like when you get to a place of surrender, you just realize it's just so much bigger than you. And then you can actually like go and follow your purpose, connect yourself with other people who have surrendered, you know. And usually surrendering comes at a place like you have 2 options. You can surrender willingly or you are forced to, so like or someone's gonna force you to surrender. But it doesn't mean defeat. I think that for a long time I connected surrendering with defeat, and it's not that at all. It's truly abandoning the ideas that you thought were holding you up. They never served you to begin with. So it really is an abandonment of an idea that just doesn't serve you anymore. And you can find salvation on the other side. So that's what I really wanted for Ray. I truly wanted, like, it was so nice in that scene. And like, I remember going to Peter, I was like, I'm just happy he got to sit down. I was like, I'm so glad that Ray is forced to his knees to like sit down and relax and have somebody take care of him. Like, he was usually spending the whole series wiping something off of somebody's face, making sure somebody's okay. That was all he did because it helped him not have to focus on his own personal, right? But it was so nice to see him finally get to a place of someone caring for him and about him. And I just thought it was a brilliant way to end it. I think that Peter is just such a brilliant mind, and to know that Ray ended the series feeling cared for was what was really important to me.
Yeah, it's literally a perfect bookend for everything that the character goes through. And I really appreciate you talking about all of this. I always love seeing you pop up on screen. And so
Thank
was really
you.
looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much, Brian.
Of course. Thanks. Till next time.